The intermediate trick for head movement, turning the head to the left and right. Our objective is to teach the dog to turn his head to the left and the right, as if he was saying no. The prerequisite is that your dog understands hand targeting, understands a weight cue, and is responsive to his name. One approach is to start by having your dog in straddle position. Ask him to touch your hand presented to one side of his head. Mark for the touch and reward. Initially, it is best to teach each direction independently before starting to alternate them. Then, as your dog's understanding grows, instead of rewarding for each turn, you can withhold your mark and reward until he has turned in both directions. The next step is to progressively raise your hand a little so that it becomes a hand stare rather than a hand touch. Start with your hand quite low and mark and reward for looking at it, and then progressively present your hand a little higher each time. Work on this separately to both your left and your right. When both directions are progressing well, you can start to alternate them, but go back to a lower hand position. Alternatively, you can stand in front of or beside your dog, again starting with hand touches or luring, and then progressing to visual targeting. Another approach is to have someone make a noise behind and to the side of the dog, and for the handler to mark when he turns his head in response to the noise. The following illustrates the result of that method. Another approach is to be back to back with your dog. Again, you can start by asking for a nose-to-hand touch, so that the dog has to turn to make that contact. Establish the behaviour on one side at a time. First to one side. When that's established, to the other side. Then you can start alternating sides, but still rewarding for each turn. Then, rather than nose-to-hand touch on each side, you can do visual hand targeting or visual targeting of your upper body and using your verbal cue. Finally, you can stand more upright with your dog responding to your slight body movement and to your verbal cue. Whichever method you use, you can experiment with your position and with the dog's stance. The following method involves the use of target objects rather than the handler's body movement. Here we are using 2 cones with an associated target, in this case a fly swatter secured to each cone. To start though, we introduce the targeting of the fly swatter
while holding it. We can do this from in front or from behind the dog. Again, we build up turning to each side separately rather than alternating them. Then we place the fly swatters in the cones so that our hand movement isn't part of that picture. Using a platform can be helpful for keeping the dog stable, and here we're marking when the dog goes to the desired side, but rewarding towards the other side in preparation for later alternating the direction of turn. We then progressively move the cones further apart, so it's more about looking in the direction rather than touching the fly swatters. When increasing the distance of the cones apart, we start close to the dog and then progressively build the distance a little more. When you remove the platform, go back a step and have the cones closer and be closer to the dog. You can also emphasize the degree of the turn by bringing the dog forward of the cones. Again, we incrementally build the distance between the cones until they are a significant distance apart. We also build our distance from the dog. We then build turning in each direction before coming into reward. At the same time, we're continuing to develop the clarity and duration of the head turn, as well as the dog's understanding of the verbal cue with minimal body language. We continue to build the dog's understanding until the physical cues can be totally removed. Whichever method you use, you progressively decrease the visual cues, whether hand or body movement or target objects, and build the dog's understanding of and response to your verbal cues. Now pulling together the key elements of the trick. For the setup, your dog can be in any stance, and he may be in front of you and facing towards you or away from you, or he can be beside you. You can give a verbal cue and may use a hand signal and or body movement. On your cue, the dog will turn his head about 45 degrees to the left and right in turn. The judge will indicate that the trick is complete when your dog has turned his head in both directions. The dog's head can return to neutral after the second turn. Now pulling together the key elements of the trick. For the setup, your dog can be in any stance, and he may be in front of you and facing towards you or away from you, or he can be beside you. You can use a verbal cue, hand signal, and or body movement. On cue, the dog must turn his head approximately 45 degrees to the left and to the right. The movement must be clearly visible to the judge. The judge will indicate that the trick is complete when your dog has turned his head
in both directions. The dog's head can return to neutral after the second turn.
Here are some examples of the intermediate trick: head movement, turn left and right, or say no.